All right. Gotta say, you really threw me a curveball with this article about Adrian Wojnarowski.
Yeah, it's not your typical NBA news day, is it?
No, not at all. We're used to seeing Woj's name next to, well, pretty much every major NBA trade or signing, not
Right.
retiring from ESPN.
Right, and not just retiring, but to become the general manager for St. Bonaventure's basketball team?
Exactly. St. Bonaventure's like out of left field, I mean, this is Woj we're talking about, the guy who practically is the NBA news cycle.
It's definitely not your average career move, that's for sure.
Woj bombs aren't just tweets. They're like the word from on high for NBA fans.
And his leaving ESPN, it really highlights how important that instant insider info is these days. Remember those reports about his, what was it, $7 million salary?
Yeah.
That tells you something.
7 million. Wow, I knew he was a big deal.
Big problem. It's not just about the name recognition. It's ESPN investing in being the go-to source for all things NBA. So for him to just walk away, there's got to be more to the story.
Okay, yeah. See, this is where I need you to bring me up to speed.
How so?
Well, I can rattle off NBA stats all day long, but my college basketball knowledge is, let's just say it needs some work.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So, St. Bonaventure, enlighten me.
All right, so they're not exactly Duke or Kentucky, They're a smaller program, a bit of an underdog story, which is what makes this whole thing even more interesting. He's not going for a brighter spotlight. He's going back to his roots, back to his alma mater. He even said something about it being his chance to be a part of his own team again, which I thought was interesting.
His own team. Yeah, almost like he's drawing a line between that and
the cutthroat world of NBA news.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if maybe this move is about more than just basketball, more about purpose, belonging, things maybe even someone as successful as Wojnarowski felt were missing.
Okay, now that is interesting. So we've got this high-pressure, high-stakes world of breaking news that he's leaving behind. But what does it mean for a school like St. Bonaventure to actually snag someone with his, I don't know, his clout? I'm guessing it's a pretty big deal for them, right?
Big deal might be putting it lightly.
Putting it lightly. Okay, so paint me a picture then.
Well, we know Wojnarowski's connected, like really connected to every level of the NBA, right? Okay. So imagine that network, those relationships, all suddenly laser-focused on building up a college program.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, but for those of us who don't have Woj-bomb intel, spell it out.
Think of it like this. You've got this landscape, college sports, changing faster than ever, and then you drop someone like Wojnarowski right in the middle of it. He's a game changer.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of game changer are we talking about?
Well, let's talk about name, image, and likeness deals for a second. NILs.
Yeah, NILs, that's a whole other ball game these days.
Exactly. And this is where someone with Wojnarowski's connections could completely change the game for a school like St. Bonaventure.
Okay, so break it down for me. How does Woj change things on the NIL front?
Think about it. The guy spent years, decades even, building relationships with everyone. Agents, players, even those big companies looking to make a splash in the NBA. That kind of access, that ability to connect the dots, it's like gold. Pure gold in the NIL era. Suddenly, St. Bonaventure isn't just some name on a schedule. They're a potential gold mine for endorsements, for national attention.
So instead of crossing their fingers and hoping a top prospect falls into their lap, they're now in the game thanks to Woj's Rolodex.
That's one way to put it. And it's not just about reeling in the big fish. It's about opportunities for the whole program. I was reading that Wojnarowski would be involved in everything, like everything from NIL strategy to advising the coaching staff.
Wow, they're really giving him the keys to the kingdom.
They are, and it makes sense, right? It's a level of expertise most schools could only dream of.
Right, okay, so we've got St. Bonaventure over the moon, we've got Woj probably energized by this whole new challenge. But let's bring it back to, us regular folks for a second. You mentioned before how this whole thing changes how we consume sports news. What did you mean by that?
Oh, yeah, that. Well, for starters, you've got Wojnarowski, one of, if not the biggest names in NBA news, stepping away from the breaking news game. That throws a wrench into the traditional model, And frankly, I think it might be a sign of things to come for media in general.
Interesting. So how does it all shake out?
Well, you've got outlets like ESPN, right? They're built on being the first, the most reliable source. But things are changing. The ground is shifting under their feet, so to speak.
You're talking about social media, right? I mean, I check Twitter, X, before I even think about turning on SportsCenter these days.
Exactly. Platforms like X, Instagram, they're the new arenas for breaking news. Fans can get information straight from the source, from athletes, from insiders. It's a whole new ballgame.
And a lot faster pace, too.
Exactly. It's created this fragmented, instantaneous news cycle. And honestly, it's got to be exhausting trying to keep up.
Especially for journalists like Wojnarowski. I mean, just thinking about it, trying to stay ahead of the curve, constantly chasing that next bomb.
It's a grind, no doubt. And let's be real, it's probably not sustainable in the long run. Which brings us back to that idea of purpose, Maybe Wojnarowski saw the writing on the wall. Maybe that constant chase for the next scoop just lost its luster.
So he steps back from the chaos, finds a place where he can actually make a difference, where his experience is really valued.
And where he can reconnect with the game on a different level, It makes you wonder, in this world obsessed with what's next, who's got the scoop, is there a quiet revolution brewing? Will we start to see more journalists, more people in general, looking for roles that offer something more, deeper meaning maybe, a chance to really make an impact, leave a mark?
That's a pretty profound question. And honestly, it's making me rethink how I consume sports news. Maybe I need to take a step back,
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, right? We started with Woj calling it a career, and now we're talking about, a whole revolution in how we think about sports news.
I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Yeah.
This whole thing with Wojnarowski, it really makes you step back and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The guy was at the top of the game, breaking news left and right. But maybe that pace just catches up with you. We're all trying to find that balance, I think, between staying in the loop, but not letting the constant stream of information just sweep you away.
No, I totally get that. It's like you don't want to be the last one to hear about something, but then you're glued to your phone refreshing, X, I guess. Is that the future of sports news, though? Just endless updates and hot takes?
It's definitely a huge part of it. And for the traditional outlets like ESPN, it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
They can't compete with that immediacy, so what do? They have to offer something else, something more.
So what? Like more in-depth pieces?
Yeah.
Analysis, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And maybe even more importantly, a human element. I mean, yeah, we can get stats and scores anywhere, but what we really want is context.
Right.
Understanding the why behind it all.
And that takes a little more time, a little more...
Exactly. And maybe that's part of what Wojnarowski was searching for, that connection, a sense of purpose that goes beyond just breaking the next big story.
It really makes you think, in a world that's all about speed and who's got the next big scoop, sometimes the most impactful move is just taking a step back.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
I really appreciate your insights on this. It's really giving me a lot to think about how I consume sports news, Maybe it's time I actually watch a game instead of just reading about it afterward.
Hey, sounds like a plan. Enjoy the game. And remember, sometimes the best insights come when we tune out the noise and reconnect with what truly matters.